All right, guys, what's up? So, look, we've had a lot of questions about when you start your Facebook ads and you're going into the testing phase, whether you're testing creatives or audiences first or simultaneously. In the guide Fuel the Algorithm, we talk about separating your tests into creative testing and audience testing. And jumping into it, you kind of have to do both of those at the same time, and then when you get some data, you kind of separate them. So basically, we just wanted to talk about some of the ins and outs of testing, especially early on, when you're just you never even run an ad before, you have no data on anything, and you want to jump right in and get this process started. So cool.
Yeah, let's get after it.
Let's get after it. All right, cool. So basically, when you are starting the testing process, my recommendation would be to maybe write one or two ads and really, put a lot of time and effort into those ads, in terms of the headline and sort of that first line that you see on the ad. So the primary text and the headline, you really want to focus on what people see, before having to click, see more or anything like that, right? And so that's usually the headline and then the first line or two of the primary text. So you look at those as like two different headlines, right? Um, and then obviously pick an image that you think is enticing or whatnot. And as you do this more and more and more, you'll see kind of like what works on Facebook and what doesn't. And you'll have a better idea of what to launch into your testing. And but for example, you just want to start with like one or two ads, okay? And you'll take that one ad and you will run it against maybe five different audiences, and that's kind of the first step you do. So you're really sort of starting with audience testing by taking your one or two ads and running them against, five different audiences. So that's kind of the answer to the question. There is really what you want to do is create that one ad and run it to multiple audiences just to see what you can get out of those different audiences and what audiences react better to whatever it is that you said in the first place.
Yeah, and in terms of the verbiage and the headline and that primary text stuff, there's kind of two approaches, and you want to try and find some middle ground here. But really, one, approach number one is creating really clickable ads and just like doing everything you can to stop someone from scrolling, get excited about clicking and learning more. And then from there, you got to use your website, your sales page to really push them to a sale. And then there's approach number two, which is being a little bit more straightforward and less clickbaity on the ad, and kind of letting somebody know exactly what it is they're clicking to learn, exactly what it is you're buying. And, obviously the difference there is you'll get a little bit higher click costs on that second approach, but you'll really be kind of narrowing down who your audience is and who's going to be buying from you. So in order to starting out, I would suggest trying to kind of find that middle ground, because you do want to get the clickability and you want to get clicks to the page and find out where your conversions are going to come from. But at the same time, if it's too clicky, especially we'll get into a sec, this low cost, this low budget testing, you might have some mixed results and not quite clear winners within the testing if it's too much, just too clickbaity from the start.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So some of our highest converting ads cost like $6 a click, but they're so direct and straightforward and explain so much about the product that's being offered. Um, and they're not like highly clickable that the people who do click end up converting very well.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we have ads where we get below $1 a click that are, a little bit more enticing, let's say, and it takes a lot more people to get through to the page to actually get those conversions. Um, so that's a good thing to kind of understand, is the balance between like an enticing ad getting someone to click, and then also more somewhat of a less enticing ad but being more direct.
Yeah,
Cool.
more upfront approach.
Yeah, and so when in terms of like, developing those first one or two ads and then running it to, five different audiences, let's say. The budget's kind of up to you and, what you can take here. The more that you spend over 3 days, the more data you'll get, and the better idea of what you'll have, the better idea you'll have of what will work at scale. But what you can do is test like $5 a day budgets, for 3 days if you want to be super conservative, and then just look at the data points that matter the most. Like what are the click costs? What's the click through rate? Did you have any add to carts and purchases? And then of course, if you had purchases, that's sort of a good indication that that ad is going to be good. If you had add to carts or any other indicator like initiate checkouts or anything like that, then you know it's suggesting that this ad's good. And then if you have high click-through rate, um, then that's a good thing to look at too. So if you're only spending $5 a day, you want to look at all these things. And even if you didn't have a purchase or whatever that goal was, you didn't get that lead, you can look and see what ad performed the best in terms of driving traffic and getting closest to the result that you were going for.
Yeah. Yes. Just to jump in. So the idea with this low budget testing is it's a little bit, obviously more conservative, but it allows us to just spread budget across more audiences for that initial test. And so, at that $5 a day, we could test 5, 10 audiences at a time and not break the bank with that. And, typically, okay, so let's say $5 a day over 3 days, that's $15 per audience and spend. A lot of the time you're not going to be getting purchases for that $15, especially if your product costs more than $15, and a lot more, your chances are very slim that you get a conversion for that. But there are these other data points that Q's talking about that we can look at to get an idea of, okay, we just tested 10 audiences. 3 of them I have really good click rates, click costs and click through rates, and got a lot of people to a landing page, and a couple add to carts here and there. And then maybe 2 of them are right on the fringe, some decent click costs, and then 5 of them are just way too expensive, and nobody really seemed to care about that ad, right? And so what that did is allow us to get rid of 5 audiences that we now say, okay, those aren't going to be getting any more budget, those lost this round of testing. And now we have really 3 that we could focus on, 5 if we have the budget to do so, to put a little bit higher spend into, get a little bit more data in the door, and see, which of those 5 are going to be our best converters.
Sure.
It's just a way to kind of not quite break the bank and identify audiences early on that we can be a little bit more confident to spend to and test.
For sure. Just to give you an idea of like what I like to do too is, let's say I'm testing 5 different audiences with one creative, and one audience starts to work with that creative. What I'll do is I'll go, after 3 days, let's say only one audience worked with that creative. I'll go and just cancel those other audiences. Then I'll duplicate the audience that did work, and then I'll start doing my creative testing, and I'll look at why that ad started to work, and then I'll come up with different angles based on that ad, and then do slight variations, like change the image or change like the background image of that ad. And that's when I hop right into creative testing, because basically I showed that an audience is starting to work. Let's see what other angles and ways I can attack this to make the ads work better with that audience. And then it's kind of like hopping out of that and then going back to audience testing. Once I find the ad that really works with the audience, that one audience, then I go and take that ad and I run it against 5 or 6 different audiences, and start that process again. So you can quickly read the data and start moving from and start jumping into audience testing and creative testing, just off of your initial test. And the key is to just pay attention to that data and realize what it is that you said in your ad that might be working, or that is not working. So always pay close attention to that stuff. And as you go into creative testing, then just start testing a bunch of different headlines and a bunch of those different primary text headlines, as we call them. And then every time you get that data, it's just paying attention to what's working, again, and then taking what works and distributing it against different audiences, and
Yeah.
keep on moving like that. So
Yeah, in terms of reading those data points within our course material, and what we do with our clients is we actually help set up a very specific dashboard in order to get all the data and information that we need for these campaigns. But what you guys can do is, above your little ads manager dashboard, there's the little kind of three lines on the right hand side, and it's the columns that you'll be looking at, and you're going to want to add some data points there in order to utilize this small budget testing really well. So when you look at your ads manager right now, chances are you're not seeing all the click-through rates and landing page views and unique page views and cost per page view and all that stuff, and you want to add that stuff so you have a very good idea of exactly what's going on with your campaigns, and that's how you'll be able to make decisions at these lower budgets.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, if you guys don't have your dashboard set up, you're going to really want to be uh, looking at the things that matter the most to you, and that can be different. That's obviously different for everyone. For us, the majority of our funnels use add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchase as our main things that we look at. So in our dashboard, we look at link clicks, click through rate, CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions, and then we look at cost per link click, cost per landing page view, and then we also look at add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchase, and the costs associated with those, so that we can have a clear picture across the board. Many of you will have different setups. Some of you are probably running leads, so you would want to put in the metrics that create your dashboard with the metrics that are most important to you there. And then some of you might have a more complex system or funnel for tracking different events. We like to keep it really simple. So it's like literally like page view, add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchase. And then we do have some other events in there, but that we just use them for retargeting and custom audience purposes. So anyways, yeah, I think that's a pretty good overview of the testing, or at least how to start it, and then how to start and then move into the creative and audience testing. But again, just to quickly recap, when you are starting out, just pick really focus on one or two ads and run those to a bunch of audiences. If you could run those to 20 different audiences, if you have the budget to do that at $5 a day or even $20 a day per audience, the more that you can do, the better. And then one of those audiences for sure will start picking up on your ad, and your ad will start resonating with that audience. And then then you have like the first place to move from, So think about it this way. If you take one ad and run it to 20 different audiences, within 3 days, you're going to have answers, right, that you can make decisions off of. But if you take one ad and you run it to 3 different audiences and wait 3 days, you're giving yourself less chance to get the answers that you need to make decisions off of. So
yeah. Two quick disclaimers. One, you want to duplicate your ad as well. You want to at least run 2 ads, even if they're the exact same ad. Probably should do the exact same ad at low budgets to each audience, to give yourself a better chance at hitting a pocket of that audience that might convert for you. And then 2, early on in your advertising strategy and in the testing, it's typically going to cost like a little bit more than the cost of the product to get conversions. So that's why I really wanted to put the point home that with these low budget strategies, you're not always going to get conversions, and that's okay. And that's not necessarily what you need to be looking for. In order to give a really proper test where you can look at conversions as your your metric for making these decisions, we say you got to spend 3 times the cost of your break even point. So let's say you have a $30 product, your overhead and shipping on that is $10, so $20 is your break even point. You got to spend $60, so $20 a day for 3 days on that audience to give it a full test and make a true decision on, okay, is this viable for continuing to spend or not, by looking at conversions. So just to let you guys know, at these low budgets, a lot of the time you're not going to be getting conversions. So that's why we're saying look at these different data points and then make some decisions on which audiences to then put more budget into. Do that 2 to 3x spend over your break even point, and then you can start looking at, okay, where are my purchases coming from? What audiences are buying from me?
Yeah. In some cases too, I'll see with clients like we'll do a $5 a day budget on an ad set running a particular ad, and over 3 days they'll get like three purchases, right? And that's like hitting the gold mine, right? You're like, okay, you have three purchases that came through for a total of $15 spend over the course of 3 days. You know that ad is going to be a good ad. You take that ad, you duplicate it, and you run it to a bunch of different audiences, and you're kind of off to the races. So
Yeah.
sometimes that does happen just because you're spending such little money, and Facebook is sort of like pressured to get you the result with the little amount that you're spending. um, and then they have like 3 days to kind of like figure, the algorithm kind of has like 3 days to figure that out and like, get that result. um, it's not too typical, to Cole's point, but if you do see something like that and you get three purchases, and sometimes, it's funny for us, we have so much experience in this that like seeing those three purchases is huge, and we're like, boom, now we have an ad that works, let's go distribute it. Some people that we've worked with or had consultations with wouldn't be impressed by that, and it's like, dude, if you spent $15 and got three purchases, I don't care, what's going on, you're actually proving the concept that people are reacting to your ads and making purchases based on that. So run with it. So that's a amazing sign. If you had spent $15 over the course of 3 days and even had like two add to carts, you're on the right path. So just kind of want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's it for today.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, more detail on that, drop them in the comments, and you can also book an intro call with us if you haven't already. So we'll drop that here too. So you guys feel free to hop on that, ask any questions you might have from this video or others, and we'd love to learn more about your guys' business and what we can do to help.
Yeah, awesome. And I will say this, that we've talked a little bit about testing, and testing is actually where we get the most questions because it really is that hump that you need to get over. Once you find what works consistently through your testing, it's just a matter of throwing that stuff into campaigns to scale. And of course, there are issues when scaling too, but getting over this testing hump is the first thing you need to do, and then scaling is actually much easier than the testing is. So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, to Cole's point, if you guys want to hop on a call with us and do an intro call, we're happy to answer any of your questions about testing and scaling as well. And again, this is like a no pressure call. We're not trying to sell you anything. Of course, we do have a coaching program, and we will tell you about that if we think that it's something that you're interested in, or if you tell us that you're interested in it. But really, we just want to hop on the phone and get to know you, understand your business, and hopefully give you a game plan for moving forward with what you got.
Cool.
All righty, see you guys.